Wonderful, wonderful. At this time, talk about wonderful, I want to call on the effervescent Scott Rotruck, my PEC board chair, to come up and introduce our special guest, who actually recommended Roderick. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Donna. Roderick, that was fabulous. I am excited. I want to run through that wall over there. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Scott Rotruck, and I do have the honor of being the chair of the Public Education Collaborative. I wanted to say, before I introduce Dr. Joseph Maroon, I just want to say thanks to Donna and her team and Benedum. God bless Benedum and their team. Let's give them a round of applause. You all are fabulous. Long live West Virginia. Live long and well, West Virginia. And if you do that, you'll be able to do good. You'll be enabled. I have the distinct honor of introducing an exemplar of that. Someone who's lived a long life very well and who is not done yet. Dr. Joseph Maroon is a native West Virginian. He's from Wheeling. A world-class octogenarian neurosurgeon. The neurosurgeon for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He has done so many things that are so good for people. He was one of the co-inventors of IMPACT, the protocol that can tell if you've had a concussion. It's been done 25 million times, and they're now finding ways to also use it for other purposes. He's been a pioneering neurosurgeon. But what he's really proud of is being a triathlete. In fact, my wife and I saw him in 2013 in Kona, Hawaii, laying on a deck getting ready to do the swim in the sea. He's just fabulous. All the good things that we've heard today, from Clay Marsh, who said that Dr. Maroon was his hero, to everybody else. If you do the things we've heard today, you too can be an 84-year-old athlete who in 82 won his age group in an Ironman. Just unbelievable accomplishments. He's also a prolific author. He's written 400 and some papers. He's written 6 books, one on longevity, and one, it's so good, Square One. It's about his life. It's about how all the things that he did to recover when he was really down. And when you see somebody that's this successful, you may think their life was always easy. His wasn't. He recovered from that. On May 10th of this year, Dr. Maroon will be awarded the Ellis Island Medal of Honor. That is an award that's been given to Nobel laureates. It's been given to some presidents. It's very limited. But it says just how important the work he has done that's positively affected the lives of other people. The actor James Dean famously said one time, "Live fast, die young, and leave a good-looking corpse." Remember that? Maybe some older folks remember that. Joe topped it. He says, "How to die young as late as possible." So with that, Dr. Maroon, run up here.
Thank you very much, Scott. I appreciate that. He mentioned that I won my last triathlon a couple of years ago. I won my age group. I was the only one in my age group. but I do want to thank Ms. Farmer and also Janet Peduto and Gail Manchin for giving me the opportunity to share some very personal experiences with you here this afternoon. And it's kind of a provocative title, How to Die Young as Late as Possible and the Secret to a Balanced Life. Does anyone not interested in that? I've been interested in that for a long time. And I'm not going to be able to share with you a cure for aging, although aging is considered a disease process now, a disease itself. And I am going to suggest, however, how to compress morbidity the difficulties that occur with aging into the shortest possible time, and then hopefully exit quickly. That's what we all hope for. None of us are going to get out of here alive. And what I thought I would do this afternoon, there's a saying that data tells, but stories sell. So I'm going to tell you some personal stories to illustrate my case, my roots, and also discuss a few life quakes that I had and what that is. And also, this morning we heard that the new definition for retirement was work. I would say it's renewal. It's the opportunity for renewal. Like Isaiah said, he who trusts in the Lord shall be renewed. He shall rise up on wings like eagles, run and not be weary, and walk and not be fatigued. But it's about renewal. And I grew up in Wheeling, West Virginia, Bridgeport, Ohio, actually, across the river. Population 2,900, 5 bars, 20 stray dogs. And there were 3 opportunities if you finished high school, and even if you didn't, you work in the coal mines, the steel mills, or you got a scholarship to college. And I was very fortunate. I wouldn't be standing here today if I did not play on the 1957 American Legion Post 227 baseball team. I was a center fielder at age 15 or 16. John Havlicek was a shortstop, and Phil Necro was the pitcher. We had 13 kids, all sons of coal miners, steel workers, and we won the state championship. Subsequently, John Havlicek won 8 NBA titles, Ohio State grad, and then NBA with the Celtics. Phil Necro's in the Baseball Hall of Fame, the best knuckleballer of all times. And I actually had fear for, Woody Hayes was fearful of me when I played for Indiana. I was a running back. I was 6'2" and 250 then. And this is what happened when you play in the Big Ten. But why do I tell you this story? I tell you this story because of the wonderful summary of General Douglas MacArthur. When he was commandant at West Point, he had this plaque placed, and it's still there, facing the playing fields of football, baseball, hockey, etc. On the fields of friendly strife are sown the seeds that on other days and on other fields will bear the fruits of victory. The lessons I learned on the fields of friendly strife, teamwork, play through pain, get up when you're hurt, loyalty, coaching, all of these things are the qualities that we need more today as educators in our schools. And I would mention also that our good friend and senator from West Virginia, Joe Manchin, had he not played football for the Farmington Farmers. I thought that was a very interesting name, Joe. The Farmington Farmers in high school in 1965 and 66. Had he not gotten a scholarship to WVU, he would not be sitting here with his wife, Gail, who we met at WVU. What I'm suggesting, ladies and gentlemen, is that sports are so important and so integral to character, to building life good habits. So when I finished medical school, 15 years of school, residency, etc., I went to the University of Pittsburgh. I was appointed chief of neurosurgery at the Presbyterian Hospital, doing very significant research, and I was appointed the first consultant to the Pittsburgh Steelers and in the NFL in terms of neurosurgery. And that resulted from taking care of 5 quadriplegic young men who came into the ER when I was on call, and then initiating various sports medicine programs locally and how to prevent head and neck injuries in high school football. My day job was taking care of patients with brain tumors, subarachnoid hemorrhages from aneurysms, blood clots, spinal injuries, and I was doing very well. We did some of the first operations on awake patients with brain tumors, removing them from eloquent parts of the brain while the patient's actually awake, and flying actually very high, you might say. And then there was a major cataclysmic lifequake. Within the course of a week, my father died at age 60 of a massive heart attack. My wife left because I was so successful, I subsequently realized. And also, I had to quit neurosurgery. I was incapable, because of severe depression, to continue operating in a safe way, and I knew it. I subsequently had what Bruce Feiler calls a lifequake, a calamitous life event that leads to a period of upheaval, transfer, and renewal. Everybody in this room will have major lifequakes. Feiler interviewed several hundred people, and he concluded that 3 to 5 lifequakes occur in our lives at least that we must handle: divorce, loss of a child, accidents, health problems. I moved into this farmhouse in Wheeling, West Virginia, in the middle of winter, and I worked in this dilapidated truck stop that my father bequeathed to my mother, very heavily mortgaged, and I was filling up 18-wheelers, flipping hamburgers, and wondering, how in God's name did this happen? How did this happen? And I came across this quote that's so good. Every person here, the life of every man is a diary in which he means to write one story, but sometimes writes another. His humblest hour is when he compares the volume as it is with what he vowed to make it. I did not vow to make my life working in a truck stop, parking trucks and filling up 18-wheelers. And you may recall the story of Icarus. Icarus was a mythological person who was imprisoned with his father Daedalus on the island of Crete. And to escape, they made wings the father made wings of feathers and wax. But he cautioned the son, when you assume flight, do not fly too near the sun, lest the wax melt and your feathers come off and you plummet into the sea, nor fly too low, lest the waters pull you into the water and wet your feathers and perish. So it's about balance. The first story that I could really find about balance. And I was like Icarus. I think there was a bit of hubris, maybe more than a bit, and there was a high penalty to pay for that at the time. So what do you do when you're pathologically depressed? How do you get out of it? Well, everybody has their own mechanism, I'm sure, between therapy, drugs, etc. But in that farmhouse was a little book that was given to me as a award when I graduated from high school in Bel Air, Ohio, entitled I Dare You by William Danforth, the founder of the Rolston Purina Checkerboard Square Company. He said, I dare you to live a balanced life. If you forget nothing else that I say today, I want you right now to draw a square in your mind or on a piece of paper. At the top, put work. On the right side, put family and social relationships. On the bottom, spirituality, and on the other, physical. Now, I want you to draw a line commensurate with how much effort you put on each one of these on a daily basis. How long is your work line? How long is your family and social line? And what about your spiritual line and your physical side? Well, I sat down and I drew my square, and it looked like a handle of some kind. It was all work. No relationships. I neglected the important things, really important things in my life. Spirituality was atrophic, and physical also. I was 20 pounds overweight. And the banker who held the mortgage on the truck stop, Don Jebbia, actually, Elm Grove National Bank, called me one day and said, Joe, let's go for a run. You got to run. Run? I can't walk up a flight of steps, Don. But anyway, I found a pair of tennis shoes, old scrubs, went down to the local Triadelphia high school track, which is what you see there. I made it around 4 times, and I said, never again. I was exhausted, I was hurt, I was out of breath. But that night, something very strange happened. I slept for the first time in months. And I went back the next day, and I did 1.25 miles. Then 1.5 miles, then 2, 3, 4. Then I was like Forrest Gump running through Wheeling, West Virginia. There he goes. And I subsequently cross-trained. I learned to swim at the Wheeling YMCA. I got a bike, and I went through the back roads of my mind, the back roads of West Virginia in the Elm Grove area. And eventually, I was able to, I did a 10-man triathlon, and I kept this obsessive thing and qualified for the Hawaiian Ironman, which is a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike. It's from Pittsburgh to Clarksburg bike, and then a marathon, 26.2 miles. And in 2013, I did this with Heinz Ward. He was paid $500,000. He'd never done a triathlon before, and I told him, I said, Heinz, you know, I've done a lot of these. I'm going to kick your butt. And but I didn't. He won. But this is the swim start. It's an incredible experience. 2,000 of the top athletes in the world. And this is, I don't know if they have. Anyway, that's the Ironman finish in Kona, and I subsequently have been able to do really 8 of these around the world, New Zealand and Canada and other places. So I'm not telling you this to boast. I'm telling you because if I didn't run around that high school track 4 times, I wouldn't be standing here today. I'd be dead, I can tell you that. The mind-body connection. We know the mind can make the body very sick. Heart attacks, irritable bowel syndrome, autoimmune diseases. But ladies and gentlemen, the body can heal the mind. Terribly important. The whole new field of psychoneuroimmunology. Wall Street Journal, how the body heals the brain. Exercise in the brain. What happens when you do aerobic activity? What happens to your neurotransmitters? You make a compound called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which enhances the formation of new brain cells, the formation of new synaptic connections, wherein memory is encoded, and neuroplasticity, the ability to take a huge amount of information and give it back in a coherent way, as well as it reboots all of our neurotransmitters. Our serotonin goes up naturally, not with SSRIs, with all of its complications, and all of the acetylcholine, dopamine. So it's huge. In weight training, you can't forget resistance exercises. This recent article on preventing dementia with adding weight training or resistant training to it. What's the very best antidepressant? It's physical aerobic activity. It's not drugs. It's not the prescription. The hundreds of thousands of prescriptions are written every day by physicians. So a cure for aging, you know, we talked, Clay Marsh gave an absolutely beautiful talk this morning. I don't know how he the literature that he quotes, I need slides for that. He just sat here and really educated us. But he talked about elongating telomeres or getting rid of senescent cells and all the hallmarks of aging. So I thought when my father died at 60, any year beyond that for me was a bonus. And here I am, 85, and I guess still in the bonus years. But I thought, and as Clay said this morning, 20 to 25% of what happens to us is genetic. 75% of what happens to us is epigenetic, above the genes. What do I mean by that? Well, it's the genetic myth. I thought I was, as I said, 60 years old. My father died. I'm out also. But it's the epigenetic factors that tell the genes is what of 100,000 different proteins to make. And the pillars of aging. These are the things you can do to obviate Alzheimer's disease, to compress morbidity into the shortest possible time, and all of the things that Rob just mentioned to us before, things that you all know. So this is a recent article, 40 to 60 is critical for intervention in our development. So this is a period of time when your brain declines the fastest. So the things that you do from 40 to 60 are extremely important in terms of longevity. So epigenetics, what do I mean by that? If you have a Big Mac infused with, the meat infused with antibiotics and hormones, and the cows were fed corn from Iowa sprayed with Roundup, have an order of fries with trans fatty acids and a bottle of Coke with phosphoric acid and a lot of sugar, it's going to tell your transcription factors in your genes to make inflammatory agents. And what's the common genesis of cancer, heart disease, stroke? Inflammation. If you don't exercise, if your environment is unclean, and if you don't control stress, the transcription factors tell your genes to make inflammatory agents, and it's inflammation that leads to the diseases of aging. In contrast, what Roderick said about nutritional factors, a Mediterranean diet, polymixed polyphenols, exercise, and again, controlling stress is terribly important, and sleep, which is anti-inflammatory. So supplements, metformin, rapamycin, there's a whole lot of things that you can read about on a daily basis that people suggest, don't suggest, have side effects. It's a whole nother talk. But what I want to do now is transition to the renewal that I mentioned earlier. And what do I mean by renewal? It's the work that I'm blessed to be able to do now that I want to share with you that really could affect everyone in this audience or someone you know. Absolutely no doubt about it. So very quickly, an overview of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And I'll briefly touch on immunotherapy of cancer and what we're doing in terms of the diagnosis and maybe the treatment for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease and the treatment of traumatic brain injury. All that in 10 minutes. So, hyperbaric oxygen. There really is a renaissance in the use of hyperbaric oxygen therapy in the treatment of stroke, traumatic brain injury, aging, cognition, and long COVID. I don't know if anybody here knows people with long COVID, but I've seen dramatic changes. Long COVID affects 1 of 5 people who have had COVID, and very debilitating, incredible fatigue, mental processing is impaired, memory is impaired, and nothing seems to work. And I've personally seen quite a few patients with that, treated with hyperbaric oxygen therapy, making dramatic recoveries. And there's 2 kinds of chambers, the monoplace and a multiplace chamber. The multiplace is you up to 14 people, you breathe 100% oxygen. And when you breathe 100% oxygen under pressure, it forces oxygen into the plasma, and you have 17 times more amount of oxygen flowing through your body, which is a healing. It's been known for many, many decades that hyperbaric oxygen heals wounds of the extremity, diabetic ulcers, and things of this nature. It also can heal wounds of the brain. And I've seen this in PTSD. It's hugely important now for veterans with PTSD. That it's a very effective therapy, I believe, and also to enhance peak performance. This shows what happens. So what happens when you have hyperbaric oxygen therapy? It increases stem cell formation. It's anti-inflammatory. It actually reduces senescent cells, the zombie cells that cause inflammation, and it enhances neurogenesis again, BDNF, and also new synapses and connections. So a whole lot of things happen. This is from a paper we recently published on the use of HBO for neuromodulation. And So it boosts athletic performance. The Philadelphia Eagles have 2 chambers at their practice fields in this past year when they won the Super Bowl. They had the chambers taken to, where was it, Tampa? Yeah, wherever they played. But they had the hyperbaric chambers for them 2 weeks before that they were using to boost athletic performance. And I actually went under 3 months of treatment with hyperbaric oxygen at the Aviv Clinic in Florida, in the Villages. And beforehand, I measured every imaginable parameter. I had an MRI of my brain. I had a SPECT scan of my brain. I measured my proteomics in my blood. I did a stress test measuring anaerobic capacity and VO2 max, and also an EEG. And I went through before and after 3 months, and actually did a triathlon before and after. I wanted to be objective about what I didn't want to say, well, I went through this and now I feel better. And it was interesting, and my aerobic capacity, VO2 max, improved by about 9%, which was the same time I cut off of my triathlon time. Again, I won the race, the National Senior Olympics. Actually, I came in second, but the guy who won, I'm sure, lied about his age and was in the 70 to 75 age group. So that's hyperbaric oxygen therapy. This is one of the most exciting things I've done in my 50 years of neurosurgery. It's intratumoral immunotherapy. And basically, it's a new technique that recruits the body's own immune system and uses the body to create its own vaccine. And let me explain. So basically, what is done for a metastatic solid tumor, a cryoprobe is inserted into the tumor, either with ultrasound guidance, CT guidance, and an area of the tumor is lysed, L-Y-S-E-D, not to destroy the tumor with cryotherapy, but to lyse the cells into the microenvironment. That releases the antigens into the microenvironment, so now the body can recognize the antigens, which are usually blocked by what's called checkpoint molecules. That the cancers make these checkpoint molecules that, like a tarpaulin, that the body doesn't recognize it with the immune system. So then a cocktail of immunotherapeutic drugs, one of which is Keytruda, that you see advertised on TV every night, is injected into this microenvironment. This material then drains into the regional lymph nodes where the T cells are activated and now recognize the cancer wherever it is in the body. And this is a woman, a 62-year-old woman on your left with metastatic breast cancer in her liver. The liver is the large organ there that's lit up with all of the circular white and red lesions, which is the cancer. She's failed all therapy. And a cryoprobe was inserted into that long lesion, and the immunotherapeutic drugs were injected, and that's the post-op film 3 to 4 months later of her liver, with the cancer completely gone, and it's now a year post-injection, and she's doing very well. This is a urologist, and this is the spine, and all of these red and yellow things are metastatic lesions for metastatic prostate cancer. He failed everything and had pelvic lymph nodes injected that are here, and that's his post-op film here, with the cancer completely gone, and this is again a year out. Based on these studies, an FDA-approved clinical trial is now underway at the Hillman Cancer Center in Pittsburgh, at Cornell, and Lankenau Cancer Institute in Philadelphia, in which we are recruiting men who have prostate cancer, who have failed at least one form of therapy. And perhaps my over-optimism, but I think this technique may become a standard of care in 3 to 4 or 5 years as an upfront treatment. This is an outpatient treatment, local anesthesia, with 1/5 the cost of the other forms of therapy that are recommended for cancer of the prostate gland. Alzheimer's disease. You know, one out of 3 or 4 people over 80, my age, will develop Alzheimer's disease. Obviously, I'm quite interested in that. And Alzheimer's disease, as you know, is the most common form of dementia, neurodegenerative disease that leads to terrible disability and caregiver problems that was so brought up this morning, so nicely brought up. And there's the deposition of amyloid plaque in the brain, very sticky stuff, and what's called neurofibrillary tangles, which literally continue to degenerate the brain. So a couple of years ago, I was introduced to Dr. Pravat Mandal. Pravat Mandal was the former director of the National Brain Research Center in India, Gurgaon, India. He's a brilliant individual, and he's a world expert in magnetic resonance spectroscopy. You're all familiar with MRIs. Magnetic resonance spectroscopy is using special algorithms and special programs to measure the chemicals in the brain. We have now published several papers together showing that patients with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease both have a markedly diminished glutathione in the brain. So what does that mean? What's glutathione? Glutathione is the master antioxidant in the brain. So what's an antioxidant? If you leave a banana or an apple out overnight, what color does it turn in the morning? Brown. Why? Because it oxidizes. The air hits it and it oxidizes. Our brains oxidize with age. If this oxidation, as you know, I don't want to go too deep in the weeds, but you may be familiar with the mitochondria that are the power sources of energy in our body for every cell in our body. It takes oxygen and glucose to make ATP. In doing so, it generates what's called free radicals. It's like the carbon monoxide coming out of your exhaust pipe from your engine in your car. Free radicals. If these free radicals are not squelched by glutathione, it destroys the mitochondria, it destroys the lipid membranes of cells, and leads to neurodegeneration. So these are the papers we published in peer-reviewed journals on both AD and PD, showing the deficiency. And being interested in concussions for a long time, particularly related to athletics and sports, what I'm describing to you is a process called oxidative stress. When you make energy in your mitochondria and you're producing the free radicals, if they're not squelched, oxidative stress occurs. And the oxidative stress, as I said, destroys mitochondria. It affects the synaptic connections and also the function of, lipid peroxidation. Our brains are heavily invested in fat, and it breaks down the fat, leading to neurodegeneration. This also happens in trauma. Oxidative stress is a common secondary effect from trauma, particularly repetitive head injuries. You've all heard of chronic traumatic encephalopathy. These are the individuals in the NFL who feel they are losing their minds, their behavior changes, their memory is affected, and many, unfortunately, commit suicide and have their brains subsequently examined, and they say, yes, this was chronic traumatic encephalopathy. So what I'm linking for you is Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, traumatic brain injury are all diseases of oxidative stress. So what, okay? that is not so new. It's been recognized for many years. It's not been diagnosed with MR spectroscopy for many years. But so that's the observation. So what do you do with that information? So what we've done, the Chuck Knoll Foundation was founded by Art Rooney in Pittsburgh to study traumatic brain injury, particularly in sports. And we recently received a grant to study former NFL players and also former Special Warfare Combat Crewmen, SWCC, SWCC operators. These are the men in the Navy SEALs who drive the boats that you see at 50 miles an hour over waves with thousands of waves slapping. And I've connected with an individual who has a Rolodex of 300 SWCC operators. We've questioned them. We sent a questionnaire out. At least 50% of them have severe post-traumatic brain injury. So we're going to take this cohort of both NFL players and SWCC operators, do MR spectroscopy, as well as look at the microbiome. There's a huge connection, as you know, between the gut and the brain. And we're going to look at their microbiome as well as blood. If they're low in glutathione, which we strongly suspect they will be, then what do you do about it? So what is the deficiency in patients with Parkinson's disease? The deficiency is dopamine. What do people with Parkinson's disease get treated with? L-DOPA. Why L-DOPA? L-DOPA is a precursor to dopamine. And it gets through the blood-brain barrier, it gets absorbed into the cells, and it also reconstitutes some of the dopamine, which is the deficient neurotransmitter. So, glutathione is composed of 3 different amino acids, cysteine and glutamate and glycine. Cysteine and glutamate are joined together by an enzyme to form GCL, which is gamma-glutamyl cysteine. This is the precursor to glutathione. It then picks up glycine to make glutathione. So what's the significance of this? Well, we've connected and we're collaborating with some investigators at the University of New South Wales in Australia. So we've gone from Pittsburgh, Australia, India, and they have synthesized glutamyl cysteine, gamma-glutamyl cysteine, as the precursor. We feel strongly that this will cross, and there's animal work to show this, it will cross the blood-brain barrier, and we believe that it will be a supplement that's over the counter now. It's not a pharmaceutical agent, not a drug, over the counter, that we will then give to these individuals if they're low, repeat the MRS, repeat the microbiome studies, and also the neurocognitive studies that we're doing to evaluate memory, attention, and behavior to see if we can make a difference in that particular group. We're also doing a study with the Alzheimer's Disease Research Center at the University of Pittsburgh, Oscar Lopez, taking patients who are on lecanemab, which is the Lilly drug for Alzheimer's disease that works, in quotes, works in 29% of patients in slowing the process, not reversing it, has a 21% complication rate of intracranial hemorrhage and brain swelling. We're going to also take this cohort, do MR spectroscopy, and put them on gamma-glutamyl cysteine to see if we can make a difference in the neurodegeneration in that. And also, we just got another small grant for studying Parkinson's disease in the same way. Patients who have early Parkinson's disease, we will be recruiting patients with that. Again, there's no complications or side effects from this agent, and it's something that in fact, I take every day. I would put myself or my family on. So, how to compress morbidity into the shortest possible time. You know, these were outlined by Dr. Marsh, by Roderick. diet, supplements, exercise, stress management. All of this is in the book, Square One, A Simple Guide to a Balanced Life, which I suggest for your consideration. And in summary, after one of the triathlons I did in Hawaii, I went up into the mountains, actually, in West Virginia, and I thought, why in the world? What's it all about, Alfie? Why do we do these kind of crazy things, train 20 hours a week, plus a full-time job, and do this? And I thought, what are the three most important things in our lives? Number one, physical and mental health. So whatever we can do out of this wonderful conference that's been shared with you, whatever we can do, particularly the mental health issues that I see on a daily basis, family, friends, others, it's a travesty, a tragedy. And in West Virginia, dear goodness, it's a huge problem. So physical and mental health. Number two, we heard earlier about relationships. Dr. Marsh spoke about the importance of not being isolated, of importance of relationships with God, family, friends, and colleagues. And then finally, carpe diem. We know not the day nor the hour when we're going to be called, and we make the absolute most of everything. I could not be more pleased to share some of these personal experiences from Wheeling, West Virginia, and Bridgeport, Ohio, to a stage here in Morgantown, with observations with several friends here, and giving back, as Dr. Marsh said this morning. We give but little when we give of our possessions. It's when we give of ourselves that we truly give. And that's what everybody in this room is all about. And finally, that's the long and short of it. That's the real picture. I tell people I'm standing in a hole. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much. It's been a great honor and privilege to share this with you.
Working. Thank you so much, Dr. Maroon. It was quite the inspiration, and we all learned so much. And, many people in this room know the kindness that you've given to their families. I'm one of them that have terminally ill